'Twere a rich struggle up till last Friday night. After work with a sack full of chips and a few bits of fish. And when I got home, me mamma forgot to buy the Ovis. Not really the right dialogue to go with my sort of videos, is it? But I couldn't resist putting that bit in. As you probably gathered by now, this is the famous Gold Hill in Shaftesbury, and I took Jackie out for her birthday. A specific thing in mind, but we started off because this was so close and she and I both wanted to come to the Hovis Hill. But there's also another purpose of coming here, and that's to buy a lardy cake. You cannot go to Wiltshire without going to Shaftesbury and buying a lardy cake. And sadly, the baker's I used to buy in is now across the lot of coffee shop. And there's only one baker's left in Shaftesbury, good old Reeves. And they're still selling lardy cake, and what a delicious lardy cake it was. Anyway, now to the point of this video. It's a little one I've slipped in between my Cornwall videos again, because there's not a lot to it, but it's another one of those places you didn't know you didn't know. And the reason I'm doing it is because I used to be an avid follower of Jack Hargreaves and Out of Town. And I remember about 50 years ago he did this excellent video about what he called how a Dorset river lost its name, or something like that. Anyway, it dealt with the Saxon settlements in the river valleys and the streams that went down to them. And I remember him going down the Tarrant Valley. And this is part I wanted to do with Jackie. We wanted to come to Shaftesbury and then go down the Tarrant Valley. I was going to take her, buy her lunch in a pub that featured in Jack's documentary. Well, we did go to the pub, but as somebody else had arranged dinner for us that evening, we just settled for a drink. But anyway, here's a little look at where we went. I was going to go into the history of how the Saxons settled here and all the rest of it, but to be quite honest, I think all I would do is recommend you to go to YouTube and search for Jack Hargreaves, Tarrant Valley, or how a Dorset river lost its name. Have a look at the original episode for yourselves, because I will never be able to improve on that in a month of Sundays. All I'm talking about today is Tarrant Monkton, and this was the place that marked the turning point in the development of this valley, because this is when Christianity came to the Saxons, really, if you like, and the monks of Tewkesbury Abbey settled here and created the church, and more or less were responsible for the settlement growing up as it is today. Now, one of the reasons why it was so important was because it happened to be at a crossroads. You'd hardly think so now, looking at it, wouldn't you? This was the crossroads between an old Roman road that went from more or less northwest to southeast here, and a very important road that used to go from Weymouth and Blandford to London, and happened to go through here for some reason. And where I'm actually standing taking this photograph of this building opposite, which I'll talk about in a minute, we go through the ford on the old road, and that might explain why when the monks settled in Tarrant Monkton they decided to keep the ford and make it perhaps a bit more substantial, because of the importance of this old trade route, which didn't really diminish in importance until the coming of the turnpike roads, really, in the 18th century, after which a lot of the stuff was started to be moved by the turnpike road, which is now the A354 up from Blandford towards Salisbury way, and the A350 south from Blandford towards Poole and places like that. So gradually after that this area went into decline, but it remains a lovely area, rich in agriculture and quiet. I say quiet, but at the first weekend in September and a couple of days before that, and it's far from quiet, because just up the road from here is Tarrant Hinton. home to the famous Great Dorset Steam Fair, one of probably the best and biggest steam gathering in the world, if the truth is known. If you've never been there, put it on your bucket list, put it on your must-do list. Go there at least once in your lifetime. You will thoroughly enjoy it. Anyway, that's by the by. I will just mention about the little River Tarrant here. You'll see how crystal clear it is, and that's because it's a Winterbourne. Now Winterbourne is a bit of a misnomer, because a lot of Winterbournes will flow all year round now. Some of them tend to dry up in the summer. They're crystal clear because they only occur where there's chalk downland, and there's a lot of it down in this area. They come up cool, fresh and clear from aquifers deep down below the ground, and of course the water supply tends to dry up a bit in summer, and sometimes the aquifers, the water level drops below the water table, and then these little streams dry up. The Tarrant here is an all year round stream at this point, but right up at its head, yeah, it truly is a Winterbourne from time to time. Now I wanted to talk about this building again, because I've tried to find online a bit about the houses in Tarrant Monkton, because a lot of them are listed buildings. I can't find anything about this one. When you look at it, it has the nature of an old, it could be a chapel, it could be a school building, but now then, I forget even what it's called, duck puddle or something like that. Anyway, I can't find anything about it, but when we zoom in and look at the date, it says on there 1936, which I don't believe. I think it's somewhat earlier than that, because if you look, that date is set in one of these round stone things, and you may recall, especially from videos that I've done before of old chapels and things from the late 19th century, there was a tendency to carve the date that the building was completed in a circle of stone, very often with a ring round it. And I'm wondering if this is perhaps late 19th century, 1880s at its oldest, but certainly much altered and improved and what have you now. That's a one for the mystery books, isn't it? And another interesting thing here, we have the War Memorial. This is the First World War Memorial, very elaborate structure, but actually only 4 names on it, which would be in keeping with the small settlement that it was. But doesn't it just go to show how the community must have been very caring, because that would not have been cheap to erect. And I think it's very moving in a way that there are so few names on it, but it means so much. And finally we come to the pub, where Jack and I enjoyed a very nice cooling drink in the bar. Now you compare this to Jack Hargreaves' visit 50 years ago, doesn't really look that much different, but this pub has a story to tell. The current owners took it over, I think, in about 2000, and within a very short space of time there was a disastrous fire which virtually gutted it, from what I can gather. When we finished our drink, we were very fortunate. We actually met the landlady of the pub, because I'd forgotten this while we were actually having a drink, and I said to Jackie, you know, it has this old world feel about it. I said, but look at these timbers, they're quite new. Something don't quite seem right here. Are we here with a restoration or a reproduction? And so when we saw the landlady, she was actually quite impressed that I said that I thought this was the pub where there had been a disastrous fire, and one of the reasons why I wanted to come was curious to find out if it was, and to see how it had been repaired. And she said yes, she said it was a terrible fire. She said it was soon after we moved in, and she said we thought we'd lost everything, business, the lot. She said, but the community was, well, she said overwhelming was her words, I think. And she said everybody rallied round, and then there was all the business insurance and that. She said, anyway, we've rebuilt it as best we can, complete with brand new thatch roof. And she said, because we're now selling a lot of local produce and all the rest of it, people are coming because we are keeping it as local as we can. And she said, because we have a very high standard of food production. I said, but I thought I could see that when you came in. But anyway, we wished her well. I thought it was very nice of her to come and speak to us. And that's the Langton Arms in Tarrant, Monkton. If you're ever down this way and you don't mind driving off the beaten track for a bit, do go in, because I think you will enjoy the experience. I'm not saying that because she asked me to advertise, by the way. I don't do any of this for money. If I say something about something, it's because I want to, not because anybody's putting me up to it, okay? We did enjoy ourselves here, and I think it's worthy of a visit. And here's the little River Tarrant at Tarrant, Monkton. Well, you'll be pleased to know that you won't have to listen to the monologue much longer. We're on the last little snippet now, and I'm quite pleased with this shot because 50 years on from when Jack Hargreaves stood just on the other side of that direction post, it's still here, it's still showing the same places. Things have changed a little bit. There's a bit more greenery around from what I remember of his show. Just needed to say that the bridge beside the ford was an old packhorse bridge, and probably when the monks came it was just a wooden thing, but from what I can understand, the current bridge has parts of it dating back to the 15th century, but it was remodelled in the 17th century, and I suppose with restorations and maintenance work since. And that is the bridge that you see today in one of the earlier photographs. And that's where we end this little video. As I say, it's only what, 13-14 minutes long, but it tells a little tale, and I hope it has given you a look at one of these little places you didn't know as you speed along the main roads, either from Salisbury to Blandford or from Poole to Blandford. One day, just turn off somewhere and go and see what you can find.